everyone. Welcome back. Our next guest is a visual artist and architect that specializes in stained glass sculptural objects she uses as a lens to experiment with intangible properties of light. A major theme in Valeria's work is highlighting the human connection with nature and organic materials. Everyone, please welcome visual artist and architect Valeria Divinorum.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, it is our absolute honor to share your work with our viewers. You guys, you're going to be so stoked when you see what we're going to be sharing with you. I first discovered Valeria at an exhibition she was featured at called Light and Shadow, Rethinking Visual Spaces, that was presented by Bronx Council on the Arts, in which I serve on the board at Longwood Arts Gallery. And I got to tell you, I felt like I was Alice in Wonderland. Really, the work that she presents really allows for one to kind of just question even our existence. It really raises this awareness of just what we see and how we see it. I know I went there and I wanted to bring you there immediately because I don't know what goes into the way you design.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a very nice appreciation, because one of the things that I try to do with my work is to have people feel immersed in a space that changes their perception of reality. And one of the things I mention a lot is that through my own experience in life, I feel that every time I change the perspective on how I see things, usually I find new options, right? So it's a process that everyone has to go through in life, but when we can connect through that, I feel like there's a common symbolic language that I feel like through geometric patterns that I use, mainly these geometric patterns actually appear in nature. They appear in flowers and galaxies and even in our own bodies. So unconsciously, we're always recognizing these patterns as something that is in balance, or that's something that brings us some sort of harmony, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work with these patterns that already exist in nature, and then I create stained glass sculptures through these patterns. And then once I have the sculpture, I have one here, I can show
you. Oh
you.
yes, please show it to everyone so that they can see it in your hand, right? And so the first thing that comes to mind is the movie Doctor Strange, only because there's a lot of visiting into multi-dimensions, and that's what, to me, your work represents. It's like multi-dimensions.
Exactly. So my background is in architecture. I went to architectural school in Argentina, and I also learned stained glass at Taller Escuela del Sur with André Jacob. He was my mentor, and he has a lot of studies in sacred geometry. And then once I moved here, I was able to explore a lot of different type of glass, because the glass in generally is fabricated here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me a lot of opportunities to explore different type of glass. Like over here, we can see that these are called bevel glass. This is a colored bevel glass, and this is dichroic glass. I also have a dichroic glass piece here in the center. So when I create these sculptures that are 3D, like this that we see, we could recognize a cube. Once I start using bevel glass, I realized that when I hit a ray of light through the sculpture, through these glasses, especially if there's also another one in front of it, or even if there's a mirror that we can see here.
Right, inside of it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when the light hits the sculpture and hits into the mirror, and then it hits through the bevel glass, it's basically unfolding shapes that appear in other dimensions that our eyes are not able to perceive, but it's flattening those images and onto the three-dimensional space that it's what we perceive. But in mathematics, there's other dimensions, like the fourth dimension, that basically what it happens is that it involves movement. So then after discovering that, I started using, this is called a tesseract. and the fourth dimension is basically the concept of the space between two cubes. So there's a larger cube and a smaller cube inside of it that I'm creating virtually with light when I hit through these sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
So then what we're seeing are, when we start adding movement to the sculptures, we can perceive shadows and casting of light into shapes that we're not used to seeing. So then the shadows of the sculptures look 3D.
I know.
Flat.
It's unbelievable. And thank you for really giving us a tutorial on your process, because it is so stunning. I can't stress that enough, you guys. I mean, to experience it. I mean, thank you for explaining it to us, but to experience it on display and see what it is that she's referencing. I'm sure we're going to show images, but it's just I don't know. It's therapeutic. It's therapeutic. There's something very therapeutic about it.
I appreciate that too. That's very nice. And honestly, as I was saying, even though it could look more like a project that when you have a lot of geometry that could be complex, but for me is actually very intuitive, because once you understand how to decode those like patterns that we can, as I was saying, we can perceive and have some sort of connection with those patterns because we have them in our own biological system. But when I start playing with them, it feels like in my studio, like a table with a puzzle. And I start playing with them very intuitively. And then when I put the pieces together, I never know how it's going to look as an installation with the light, because it's always a surprise. I never know how the light is going to react to the piece itself. So there's also a magical process where I'm discovering something new, and it all depends on the space where we go. The same sculpture can look in so many different ways with the light hitting through and projecting them to a wall. It depends on the surface. It depends on the type of space, the distance from the light and the sculpture itself, or the wall too. So there's always a playful game on creating things that are gonna be only at that moment in that space for a while, and then they disappear, and then there's this moment, right? Like I never grew up in a religion, but I do feel like when I was younger, I had part of my family are Muslim, so we would go to their temple, and I remember that feeling that there's something of calmness and trying to connect with spirituality. I feel like we could still do that through art without having a religion, but having more of spaces of recreation, but also of connection and calmness.
Lovely, lovely. You know, you see me here grinning from ear to ear, because I personally feel, you know, having experienced your work up close and personal, that you have access something that is beyond the 3D, you know, beyond the third dimension. And so the first thing I questioned is like, how, you know, are you a meditator, right? And I only question that because of the experience in not solely looking at the way you've cut the glass, but the way the lights reflect it and the movement of it, so that even though it isn't something that people are touching, there's this interaction from the senses of viewership that is really soothing. And I understand that you make jewelry as well.
Oh yeah, I actually do. I have a piece here. I have most of my work at two different stores in Brooklyn. One is called Risk. It's a boutique, and another one is called Lagoon, that it's another store that they have a lot of artists. This piece that we see over here, it's a bracelet. It has pirate stone, and it also has dichroic glass and solder. So I soldered the different pieces onto a brass bracelet.
Is it open like this?
Yeah, you could just wear it like that.
Oh, nice. Nice. And so you said they're available at certain stores because they're one of ones, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, each one of my pieces are handmade by myself, so they're all different designs. I can repeat things if anyone likes something specifically, or a custom piece for a specific design that anyone wants. But I usually have them at a store, And I also, sometimes when I do studio visits, I have a few at my place, but also I do some flea markets sometimes. So I go to different craft markets and share my work as well.
Amazing. Okay. And so you showed me another item before we got on air that is just kind of like oh, right, the flower. I forgot about the flower too. Yes. So would you consider that a bowl? I mean, not a bowl. I don't want to insult your artwork, but like, what would you, is that multi-purpose? Full.
Yeah, I mean, it could be sitting on a table. The idea, I also have LED lights that go under them, so I could also just sit on the table, and then when the light hits through this glass, that it's a dichroic glass. I don't know if it's gonna do any effect now. I can try with my flashlight for a second and see if it works. But it creates
Nice.
different colors inside.
Mhm.
So it depends on how the light is hitting. It can cast different colors. It should be a little bit darker to actually see the effects, but that could be one thing. It could also hang on the walls. It could also be part of another sculpture. I always have different projects going on around, so I always have extra options on how to include different sculptures into one same piece.
Lovely. That's awesome. It's like its own light.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
this is more flower design, different than the geometric.
right. But still, just when you put the light on it, we were able to see the different lighting in its movement. So yeah, wow, this is really fascinating stuff for me, as you can see in my enthusiasm. And before we go, I want to share with our viewers the other piece that you showed. And I
Oh,
believe
yeah.
you also offer do you offer lessons in this?
Yeah, I do stained glass classes at my studio on Ridgewood, Queens, but I also work at a senior center and we do craft workshops. I go once a week at Bronx Works on Tremont Avenue. And one of the pieces I have home that we did over there is this mosaic piece that we've been recently working with this technique at the senior center. It has different pieces of glass and grout, and it's all glued onto a wooden piece.
Amazing. And that's what you're working on with the seniors at Bronx Works?
Yes, I did this there with them. Everyone had a piece that they took back home, and every week we do different projects. Sometimes we do mosaic. We're planning on doing a bigger mural soon, so we're gonna have bigger projects. But usually each one has a small project and they take back home all the art that they've been doing in the class.
Thank you, Valeria Divinorum, visual artist and architect. Her upcoming show, Mutual Dreams, is set to take place April 1st at 8 p.m. at the Ayati Theater, located at 64 East 4th Street in New York. And for more information on Valeria's work, you can visit valeriadivinorum.com.